Let me tell you a story that may feel uncomfortably familiar. Robert is 62 years old. He lives in a quiet suburban neighborhood. He walks his dog every morning. He takes his blood pressure medication. He doesn't feel sick. But last year, during a routine checkup, his doctor paused. Just for a second longer than usual. Your creatinine is a little higher than we'd like, the doctor said.
Nothing urgent.
But we should keep an eye on it.
Robert nodded. No pain. No emergency. So life went on.
What no one explained clearly was this. By the time creatinine shows up on a lab report, your kidneys have already been working under stress for years. Kidneys are polite organs. They don't complain loudly.
They don't demand attention. They just work, until they can't.
And for millions of middle-aged and older Americans, the pressure on those kidneys doesn't come from one big mistake. It comes from small daily choices, especially the ones made between meals.
The snacks we grab out of habit.
The healthy-looking foods that quietly overload the system. Here's the part most people never hear. You don't have to wait for kidney disease to start protecting your kidneys. In fact, some of the most powerful support comes not from prescriptions, but from choosing the right foods at the moments when your kidneys are most vulnerable. And today, I'm going to show you how simple changes, the kind that fit into real life, can help lower the strain on your kidneys, support healthier creatinine levels, and give these silent organs the relief they've been asking for all along. When most people hear the word creatinine, they imagine something dramatic.
Pain. Hospital rooms. Machines.
But creatinine doesn't work that way. Creatinine is simply waste, a byproduct of everyday muscle activity. Every time you move, your body produces it. In a healthy system, your kidneys quietly filter it out, day after day, without asking for credit. The problem begins when that filter slows down.
Not suddenly. Not overnight.
It slows gradually, often over 10, 20, even 30 years. And here's what makes kidney stress so dangerous. Your body is incredibly good at adapting. When filtration becomes less efficient, the kidneys simply work harder.
They compensate. They push through.
Until one day, a routine blood test reveals what your body has been hiding for a long time.
For many Americans over 55.
This slowdown isn't caused by one disease. It's caused by a pattern.
Slightly elevated blood pressure.
Blood sugar that's not diabetic, but not perfect.
Years of low-grade inflammation.
And most importantly, the constant, invisible load created by modern eating habits. We often focus on main meals.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
But the kidneys feel the greatest pressure.
Between meals.
That's when blood sugar fluctuates. That's when sodium sneaks in. That's when ultra-processed snacks ask the kidneys
to work overtime. Without rest, without relief.
The crackers that seem light. The protein bars marketed as healthy. The afternoon nibble that feels harmless.
Each one adds a small burden. Not enough to cause pain. Not enough to cause alarm.
But enough to keep creatinine from clearing efficiently.
Over time, those small burdens stack up. Filtration slows.
Waste lingers longer in the bloodstream. And this is where many people get it wrong. They assume the solution must be extreme.
Drastic diets. Harsh restrictions.
Medication as the first and only answer. But the kidneys don't need shock therapy. They need consistency. They need less inflammation. They need fewer hidden stressors. And sometimes, the most powerful changes happen not at the dinner table,
but in the quiet moments. When you reach for something to eat. Simply because you a little tired. A little hungry.
Or just following a habit you've had for years. That's where the opportunity lives. Because the right kind of snack doesn't force your kidneys to work harder. It gives them a break. And when kidneys finally get relief, something remarkable happens. Creatinine levels often stabilize. Sometimes even begin to improve. Not because of one miracle food, but because the daily pressure has finally been lifted. For decades, we've been told the same story. Snacks are the problem.
Snacks cause weight gain.
Snacks stress your organs. So when people hear they need to protect their kidneys, the first instinct is to skip snacks altogether.
Eat less. Wait longer. Push through hunger.
But that advice, especially after age 50, often does more harm than good. Because when you go too long without eating,
blood sugar dips. Stress hormones rise.
And your body releases stored waste
into the bloodstream all at once. Your kidneys get a break.
They get a sudden surge.
Then comes the rebound.
You reach for whatever is quick.
Something salty. Something processed.
Something designed to taste good.
Not to support filtration.
That's the real problem. It's not snacking. It's how we snack. And what those snacks ask our kidneys to do. Most packaged snacks on the shelves today are engineered to overload the system. Hidden sodium that stiffens blood vessels. Refined carbohydrates that spike blood sugar. Additives that increase low-grade inflammation. None of this causes pain. None of it sends an immediate warning. But inside the kidneys, tiny filtering units called nephrons are forced to work harder longer, without recovery time. Here's what almost no one explains clearly. The hours between meals are when your kidneys are most vulnerable. That's when hydration is inconsistent. That's when blood pressure fluctuates. That's when waste products either clear smoothly or start to linger. A well-chosen snack during this window can actually reduce the workload on your kidneys. It can slow the release of waste into the blood.
It can calm inflammation.
It can support healthier circulation through the delicate filters inside the kidney. Think of it this way. Imagine your kidneys as a water filtration plant. If trash arrives in steady, manageable amounts, the system runs smoothly. But when waste arrives in sudden waves,
all at once,
filters clog, pressure builds,
and damage follows. The right snack smooths the flow. It doesn't excite the system. It stabilizes it.
And once people understand this,
something shifts. Food stops being the enemy. Snacks stop being something to fear. They become a tool.
A way to work with your kidneys, instead of constantly pushing against them. In the next few minutes, we're going to look at the first group of snacks that do exactly that, by taking pressure off your kidneys before it ever reaches them. Most people believe kidney health begins and ends with the kidneys themselves. But the truth is far more interesting than that. One of the most effective ways to protect your kidneys doesn't start in the kidneys at all. It starts in your gut. Let me introduce you to Linda. She's 68, retired, and like many people her age, she thought digestive discomfort was just part of getting older. Occasional bloating,
sluggish digestion, feeling heavy in the afternoon.
What she didn't realize was that these signs were connected to her rising creatinine levels.
Here's why.
Every day, your body produces nitrogen-based waste. Some of it is filtered by the kidneys, but a surprising amount can be captured in the gut before it ever reaches the bloodstream. When digestion is slow and fiber intake is low, waste sits longer in the intestines. The longer it stays there, the more likely it is to be reabsorbed and sent right back into circulation, straight toward the kidneys. That's like asking your kidneys
to filter the same trash twice.
But when the gut is supported properly, something powerful happens. Certain types of fiber bind to nitrogenous waste
and escort it out of the body quietly, efficiently, without drama.
This means less waste reaching the kidneys,
less pressure on the nephrons,
and more room for healthy filtration. Now here's the key detail most people miss. Not all fiber works the same way. Insoluble fiber, the kind found in light, crunchy, minimally processed foods, acts like a sponge in the digestive tract. It doesn't spike blood sugar. It doesn't ferment aggressively. It simply moves waste along, reducing the amount that needs to be handled by the kidneys.
This is why certain simple snacks,
when eaten between meals, can be surprisingly kidney-friendly. They don't add stress. They subtract it. For Linda, the change was subtle but consistent. Less heaviness after eating, more regular digestion,
and over time,
more stable lab numbers.
Nothing extreme, nothing complicated,
just fewer hidden burdens,
traveling from the gut to the kidneys every day.
This is an idea worth remembering. You don't always lower creatinine by forcing the kidneys to work harder. Sometimes, you lower it by giving them less to clean up in the first place. And once that burden is reduced, your kidneys finally get the chance to do what they were designed to do, quietly, efficiently, without being pushed to the edge. But reducing waste is only one piece of the puzzle. There's another silent threat. That damages kidney tissue day after day, even when digestion seems fine. And that threat is inflammation. In the next part, we'll look at how certain foods help calm
the low-grade inflammation
that slowly erodes kidney function, and why color on your plate matters more than most people realize. When people think of inflammation, they imagine swelling,
redness, pain, something obvious.
But the kind of inflammation that damages your kidneys rarely announces itself.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't slow you down.
It simmers quietly,
day after day,
slowly wearing away at delicate kidney tissue. This is called chronic low-grade inflammation. And for adults over 50, it's one of the strongest drivers of rising creatinine levels. Let me tell you about George. He's 70, active, and proud of the fact that he's never been seriously sick. His blood pressure is a little high. His blood sugar is borderline.
Nothing alarming.
Just enough to be ignored. But inside his kidneys, inflammation has been quietly doing damage.
4 years. Every time blood vessels stiffen.
Every time oxidative stress builds. Every time immune signals stay switched on. Longer than they should. The tiny filters inside the kidney,
the glomeruli, become more fragile. They leak more.
They filter less efficiently. And creatinine begins to linger. Here's what makes this especially frustrating. You can't feel oxidative stress. But your kidneys feel it every second. Free radicals damage the lining of blood vessels. They disrupt the delicate balance that allows waste to pass smoothly from blood to urine.
Over time, the system stiffens. Filtration slows.
And no amount of willpower can fix that.
If the inflammation never calms down.
This is where nutrition becomes incredibly powerful. Not as a quick fix, but as a daily signal to the body. Certain natural compounds found in plant foods act like quiet firefighters. They don't shut down the immune system. They simply remind it
when to stand down.
They reduce oxidative stress at the cellular level, protect the walls of tiny blood vessels,
and help kidney tissue recover
from years of low-grade assault.
What matters most here isn't quantity, it's consistency.
Small amounts, eaten regularly, especially between meals, can shift the internal environment
from inflammatory to protective.
This is why color matters.
Deep blues, rich reds, vibrant greens.
These colors aren't decoration. They're signals. Markers of compounds that defend your kidneys, where damage usually begins.
When George made simple changes, nothing dramatic happened overnight. But over time,
his circulation improved. His blood pressure stabilized. And his lab numbers stopped climbing. Not because he attacked his kidneys harder, but because he finally stopped attacking them silently. Reducing inflammation gives the kidneys room to heal. But there's one more factor that determines how well your kidneys recover. And that's blood flow. Because even the healthiest kidney tissue can't function properly if circulation is compromised. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. You can reduce inflammation. You can improve digestion. But if blood can't reach your kidneys properly, filtration will always struggle. Because kidneys don't work in isolation. They depend on steady, gentle blood flow
to deliver waste.
And just as importantly, to carry that waste away once it's filtered. Think of your kidneys like a garden. Even the healthiest soil
can't grow anything
if the irrigation system is damaged. This is exactly what happens. In many adults over 60, years of elevated blood pressure
slowly stiffen the arteries.
The vessels feeding the kidneys lose their flexibility. Instead of flowing smoothly, blood arrives in pulses.
Too forceful at times,
too weak at others. And the delicate filters inside the kidneys
pay the price. Less oxygen,
less nutrient delivery, less efficient waste removal. This is why creatinine often continues to rise, even when people eat better,
but ignore circulation.
Let me introduce you to Margaret. She's 66, thoughtful, careful, and has followed every dietary rule her doctor gave her.
Low salt, smaller portions, plenty of water.
But her creatinine barely moved. What no one had addressed was the stiffness in her blood vessels.
When circulation improves,
something remarkable happens. Kidneys don't have to strain. They filter with less resistance. Waste clears more efficiently. Not because the kidneys are forced, but because conditions finally support them.
This is where certain foods shine quietly. Not as stimulants,
but as relaxants. They encourage blood vessels to open gently. They support nitric oxide, a molecule your body uses,
to signal
it's safe to relax now. When that signal is restored, blood pressure becomes easier to manage. Blood reaches the kidneys
without damaging force,
and filtration begins to feel smooth again. This doesn't require dramatic change.
Small portions, the right timing,
consistency over perfection. Margaret didn't overhaul her life. She simply stopped ignoring circulation.
Over time,
her readings stabilized. Her energy improved. And her kidneys stopped feeling like they were fighting upstream every day.
Supporting blood flow
gives your kidneys breathing room. But even with good circulation, there's one more quiet imbalance that can sabotage kidney health, especially in older adults. And that imbalance lies in minerals your body depends on, but rarely gets right. That's where we're going next. By the time most people reach their 60s, they're not deficient in calories.
They're deficient in balance.
Minerals are not just nutrients. They're messengers. They tell muscles when to contract, blood vessels when to relax, nerves when to fire, and kidneys rely on them more than almost any other organ.
But here's the problem.
Modern diets don't remove minerals evenly.
They distort them. Too much of one, not enough of another. And the kidneys are forced to compensate.
Hour after hour,
day after day. Take sodium, for example.
Most people assume salt is the enemy. But the real issue
isn't salt alone.
It's the ratio. When sodium rises, without enough potassium to balance it, blood pressure increases.
Blood vessels tighten.
And the kidneys must work harder to keep fluid levels stable. Magnesium is another silent player. It helps blood vessels relax. It supports energy production inside kidney cells. But as we age, magnesium absorption declines, especially in people taking common medications.
The result? More tension,
more vascular resistance,
more strain on filtration.
Let me tell you about Robert. He's 72, careful with food,
avoids junk,
and follows a heart-healthy diet. But he relies heavily on processed low-sodium products.
What he didn't realize
was that these foods were stripping potassium and providing almost no magnesium at all. His kidneys weren't failing.
They were compensating.
Every imbalance forced them to adjust fluid levels, regulate pressure, and maintain chemical stability.
Over time, that constant adjustment showed up in his labs as rising creatinine. Balance changes everything.
When mineral ratios improve, blood pressure becomes easier to control.
Circulation smooths out.
And the kidneys no longer need
to overcorrect every hour.
This isn't about supplements first. It's about food patterns. Foods that naturally deliver minerals in the proportions the body recognizes.
Simple choices. Familiar foods. Consistent habits. When Robert made small adjustments, nothing dramatic happened overnight.
But his lab stopped trending upward. And more importantly, his kidneys finally had a stable environment to work in. Because kidneys don't fail suddenly. They tire slowly. When balance is missing. And when balance is restored, they often respond better
than people expect.
Now, there's one last piece that brings everything together.
Inflammation, blood flow, mineral balance. They all depend on what you do every single day, not once in a while.
That's what we'll talk about next. By now, you may have noticed a pattern. Kidney health isn't built on extremes. It's built on rhythm. What you do occasionally
matters far less than what you repeat every single day.
Your kidneys respond to signals, timing, consistency, and how gently you treat your system over long stretches of time. One of the most overlooked signals is hydration timing. Many people drink very little all day, then try to catch up in the evening. That forces the kidneys to work harder when the body is meant to slow down. Small, regular sips earlier in the day
support steady filtration.
without overwhelming delicate tissue. Another quiet habit is movement.
Not intense exercise.
Just regular motion.
Walking improves circulation.
It encourages blood flow to the kidneys. Without spiking pressure. Even 10 to 15 minutes. Done consistently. Can make filtration feel less like a struggle. Sleep is another signal. Your kidneys listen to closely. During deep rest, inflammatory markers decline. Blood pressure drops naturally. And the kidneys get a rare chance to recover from the day's workload.
Poor sleep, night after night, keeps stress hormones elevated,
Forcing the kidneys to operate.
in a constant state of alert. Let me share Helen's story.
She's 68, eats reasonably well,
But sleeps poorly.
and stays seated most of the day. Nothing she did felt wrong. But everything she did sent mixed signals to her body. When she focused on rhythm, earlier hydration, daily walks,
Consistent bedtime. Her labs stabilized. Without adding anything extreme.
kidneys thrive on predictability.
Gentle mornings. Active afternoons. Calm evenings.
These patterns lower inflammation, improve circulation,
And support mineral balance. All at once.
and that's the real takeaway here. You don't support your kidneys with one miracle food or one perfect day.
You support them.
By removing daily friction, small stresses that add up over years. When those stresses fade, kidneys often regain more resilience
Than people expect.
even later in life. Which brings us to the final message, the part most people never hear,
But need the most. Here's the truth most people never hear in time.
your kidneys are not fragile.
They are patient. They adapt. They compensate.
They work quietly in the background, long after other systems start to complain. Rising creatinine is not a verdict. It's a message, a signal that your body has been working around imbalance for a very long time and is asking for support.
Not punishment.
Aging does not mean decline is inevitable. It means your body responds more strongly
To rhythm. Balance. And consistency. When inflammation calms. Blood flow improves.
when minerals come back into balance,
Pressure eases.
and when daily habits become gentler. Your kidneys often surprise you with how much function they still have left. This isn't about reversing time. It's about giving your body the conditions it needs
To stop fighting itself. Many people wait. For pain to act.
But kidneys rarely warn with pain. They warn with numbers. And numbers can change direction.
When the environment inside your body changes.
If you're watching this, it means you're paying attention earlier than most.
And that alone.
Already puts you ahead.
Start gently.
Build rhythm. Remove what strains your system every day. And support what heals it quietly. Your kidneys have been working for you your entire life.
It's not too late. To work with them.